Hello and welcome to a Word for This Day podcast. I'm Jori Schaefer, the show's host and creator, and it is my joy and pleasure to welcome you today. Welcome to anyone who's found us for the first time. It's no accident that you're here today, friend, so please don't run off quite yet. Please stick around for a bit and let's see what all the Lord has for us today. And welcome back to you returning listeners. I'm so thankful that you've chosen to be here today. What a joy that we can gather together, whether this is your second time back or you've been here over 1,400 times with me. I am so thankful that you are here, and I just love it that we can think about God's Word together, and I continue to pray for all of you regularly that the Lord would draw you closer to Him and give you more of a desire to know Him and to know His Word, and I pray that you'll be very intentional about your time with Him. Let me say, because I'm not sure at the time of this recording if everything's going to be up and running again, but on the 2nd, November the 2nd, for some reason the podcast, even though it was uploaded and it was live on the website, did not get pushed out to all the directories in the morning as it's supposed to. I set these to release at 2 a.m. On the mornings that they're released, and for some reason it didn't go out. And when I emailed the help section people, they're like, oh, sometimes it just doesn't go immediately, and I've not heard back from them yet, but I sent them a message and said, I've done this over 1,400 times. This doesn't happen often, so there's something wrong with either the host talking to the directories or something, so please, I humbly and respectfully ask that you figure out what's going on. But let me just say, if it's not fixed by now or whenever you get to listen to this, if it doesn't automatically pop up on your YouTube feed or on your podcast notification feed, wherever you listen to podcasts, because this is sent to many, many, many different podcast apps. I don't even know how many it is now, but all the major podcast directories it goes to. If it doesn't pop up and you realize that, you can find it online on the Buzzsprout, my Buzzsprout website, and you can look down in the show notes, and there will be a Buzzsprout website there. And providing I am still here and the Lord has not told me not to keep doing this, or has not told me to stop this, there will be an episode there. It's just for whatever reason there was this glitch this time, and it's happened about 3 or 4 other times over the period of the last 4 seasons, but it is very uncommon, and I'm hoping they'll get it fixed. But just know that you can listen online on the website, and if you know other people that listen and they say, well, what happened to that podcast? Just go back and you can look online, or you can always search online, and hopefully that's a bridge when these little glitchy things happen. But anyway, I hadn't said that enough times over the years because it's not been a common problem, but I probably need to remind people of that every so often. Anyway, I want you to know that I continue to pray for you regularly. I continue to pray that the Lord would draw you closer to Him and give you more of a desire to know Him and to know His Word. And I pray that you'll be very intentional about your time with Him. Friends, we must be intentional about our times with Him. Please don't let this be the only time you think about Him today. Please have a Bible reading plan you're doing, a Bible listening plan if you want to do a combination or a hybrid where you listen and you read, a small group Bible study lesson, a Sunday school lesson, a Bible memory verse. Have other ways throughout the day that you're focusing on Him. It'll make such a difference in your walk. Please do consider sharing this podcast with your friends, family, neighbors, strangers, just anyone you think may receive a blessing from it. And know, as always, that I love to hear from you. I love to hear what God's doing in your life as you're spending more time with Him. Well, our verse for the day, for this 5th day of November 2025, comes from the book of Ecclesiastes, Ecclesiastes chapter 11, verse 5, and it reads as follows from the Legacy Standard Bible. Just as you do not know the path of the wind and how bones are formed in the womb of the pregnant woman, so you do not know the work of God, who works all things. Oh, friends, This is a big deal, important verse. Of course, every verse is important because it was breathed out by God. But this reminds us a main thing about God. We don't know all the details. And the quicker that we can just come to grips with that in our lives, in the world, in the way His will and His ways work, and the quicker that we can just realize that we need to trust Him, that we can trust Him, that He knows what is best, and we don't try to fix it or micromanage the way He does things, the much better it will be for us. And so I'm excited for us to think about that some more. I need this reminder regularly that He doesn't have to go the way that I think things should go, or that the way that I think things should go is that I'm working on limited information, even though I may think I know it all, and I don't think that. But sometimes we think in a situation, well, I see what's going on here, but in reality, we don't know what all's going on. We don't see the unseen forces and the situations outside of our control. We don't see what's in other people's hearts and minds, but God does. And the comforting thing in all of that is that we can trust Him. We can trust that He is gracious, and He's good, and He's holy, and He's just, and He's righteous, and that He is going to do what is best in every single situation without fail. He never makes a mistake. He never says, "Oh, I wish I wouldn't have done it that way." He knows what is the right way, and sometimes He allows things to happen a certain way. When it may look chaotic to us, God is not a God of chaos. He does work all things together for good for those who love Him and are the called according to His purpose. So we can trust Him. And so I'm excited for us to think about that some more today. But, if you've been here with me before, when we're in a new scripture, or when we're looking at a piece of scripture, I like for us to think about where we are in God's Word. What book or letter are we in? Who may have written it? What was going on? And that helps us to better understand and recall and apply and share. And then we'll know also if someone's coming in and trying to twist things around on us. We could be, as Jesus told His followers, we could be shrewd as serpents, wise as serpents, but innocent as doves. We need to walk in wisdom. And the neat thing is, God gives us that wisdom, and He tells us to ask for it. And so we know that we are in the Old Testament today, and we are in that section that is called the Wisdom and Poetry Literature section. Remember that the Old Testament begins with the 5 books of the law, then it moves to Old Testament history, then to this section known as the Wisdom and Poetry, and then after that, the major prophets and the minor prophets. We were in the prophets the last couple of days, and this wisdom and poetry section, some will say there's 5 books in here, some will say there's 6, but in general, we know that it has Esther, and that's the questionable one as to whether Esther goes with the books of history or Esther goes with the wisdom and poetry. But Esther, Job, Psalms, Proverbs, Ecclesiastes, and Song of Solomon. Those are the ones that are in this history. I'm sorry, not the history, the wisdom and poetry section. This book of Ecclesiastes is also in this little section that our Jewish friends call the 5 little scrolls, or the Megillah, and I'm probably not saying that correctly. But those 5 scrolls were, let's see, Ruth, Song of Solomon, Esther, Lamentation, and Ecclesiastes. And each of these were read at different special times throughout the Jewish calendar, with Ecclesiastes being read often at Pentecost. It was just kind of their tradition to do that. And Ecclesiastes is thought to have written by King Solomon. He also wrote Song of Solomon, the Proverbs, and at least 2 of the Psalms. And we could tell that when we hop over here at the beginning of Ecclesiastes, and this is how it opens up. It says, "The words of the preacher, the son of David, king in Jerusalem. Vanity of vanities, says the preacher, vanity of vanities, all is vanity." That preacher was the one who spoke to an assembly, and of course Solomon often did that. We see that he uses this word vanity a lot throughout this book, and this book doesn't read all the way through just like a chapter book. You see with this book how Solomon seeks to know about the way things work in the world. He's trying to figure it out, and then you'll see some of his proverbs or some of his sayings, some of his questions in this chapter that we're in today. But it's just got a little bit different flavor. It's not like Proverbs saying after saying after saying after saying like Proverbs is, but there are some of those, and we'll see that in the section that we find ourselves in today. The interesting thing about about Ecclesiastes is sometimes when you read it, and it has felt this way to me before, I think it reminds me, and I've told you all this before over these 4 seasons, that it reminds me of Eeyore, who was that stuffed donkey in Winnie the Pooh, and he would just talk about how hard life was, and and then you die, that sort of thing. And that is similar, it seems, at times to what Solomon is saying. We see that he was really seeking to try to understand the big questions of life, and when it got down to it, he realized the most important thing, and I'm going to pick that up here in chapter 12 and read the last part of that. And this was the conclusion he came, but this whole book of Ecclesiastes has to do with kind of parts of his search to figure things out. But you see here in chapter 12, verse 9, it says, "In addition to being a wise man, the preacher also taught the people knowledge, and he pondered, searched out, and arranged many proverbs. The preacher sought to find delightful words and words of truth written uprightly. The words of wise men are like goads, and masters of these collections are like well-driven nails. They are given by one shepherd. But in addition to this, my son, be warned. The making of many books is endless, and much devotion to books is wearying to the flesh. The end of the matter, all that has been heard, fear God and keep his commandments, because this is the end of the matter for all mankind. For God will bring every work to judgment, everything which is hidden, whether it is good or evil." That was the conclusion after all this searching that Solomon came to. Now, I hope that when Solomon wrote this, that this was at the very end of his life, and even though he had made some unwise choices and had been disobedient to God, I hope that this was written right at the end of his life when he was teaching this, and perhaps he had turned back and had not continued in his ways of disobedience and had asked for forgiveness, because what we read in Solomon's life, and I think it's wise for us to think about this, because as we talked about, God gives us his word as examples. There's reminders it's profitable for teaching, for reproof, for correction, and for training in righteousness. So we are to look at both the good examples and the not so good examples and learn from those. We're to be taught and trained and reproved and corrected with those. And so when we look at Solomon's life, you can hop over to 1 Kings. The account of this is found in Kings. It's also found in the Chronicles. But in 1 Kings chapter 3, we see where God asks Solomon, "What shall I give you?" And Solomon asked for wisdom. And God gave him that. But in addition to giving him wisdom, he gave him so much more. And we read in 1 Kings chapter 4 that his wisdom surpassed everyone who had been up to that point, and that people would come from all around to hear his wisdom. But then in chapter 11, we read that when he was old, his heart was turned away from God. And this is just so sad to me, but also a warning that we need to be careful. We don't just need to rest on our laurels, so to speak, or what we've had, what things have gone well in the past. It is a continual reminder that we need to, as Jesus said, deny ourselves, pick up our cross daily, and follow him. Of course, Solomon would not have known about the Messiah. Jesus hadn't come when Solomon was on this earth, but it's a reminder that we must deny what self thinks, and thinking that self knows everything, and we need to look to God. We need to trust him completely. But this is the sad part that we see in 1 Kings chapter 11. In chapter 9, verse 9, it says, verse 1, sorry. Now King Solomon loved many foreign women along with the daughter of Pharaoh, Moabite, Ammonite, Edomite, Sidonian, and Hittite women from the nations concerning which Yahweh had said to the sons of Israel, You shall not go along with them, nor shall they go along with you, for they will surely turn your heart away after their gods. Solomon clung to these in love. And he had 700 wives, princesses, and 300 concubines, and his wives turned his heart away. Now it happened at the time that Solomon was old, his wives turned his heart away after other gods, and his heart was not wholly devoted to Yahweh his God, as the heart of David his father had been. And then we see in verse 9, now Yahweh was angry with Solomon because his heart was turned away from Yahweh, the God of Israel, who had appeared to him twice, and had commanded him concerning this thing, that he should not walk after other gods. But he did not keep what Yahweh had commanded. So Yahweh said to Solomon, Because this has happened with you, you have not kept my covenant and my statutes which I have commanded you, so I will surely tear the kingdom from you and will give it to your servant. Nevertheless, I will not do it in your days for the sake of your father David, but I will tear it out of the hand of your son. However, I will not tear away all the kingdom, but I will give one tribe to your son for the sake of my servant David and for the sake of Jerusalem, which I had chosen. And so I pray, based on or I hope, because it's already happened, my heart hopes this for Solomon, that by the time that he wrote Ecclesiastes and he realized that the main thing was to fear God and keep his commandments, that he had asked for forgiveness and he had turned back to him. But what we see here in Ecclesiastes is that Solomon seeks to look for about wisdom. He looks at wisdom versus folly. He sees that wisdom far exceeds foolishness. He looks at the vanity, or at sometimes the hard to understandness and the meaningless at times of hard labor. When you look at that word vanity, it can mean something that's hard to understand, or it can be that it's meaningless, in that it's like as Solomon often says, a chasing after the wind. You just can't fully grasp it. Although we know labor, the works of our hands, it's important for us to do that. It's important to work. But he looks at how some people can work hard and have nothing to show for it, how some people hardly work and have a lot. He looks at all of those things. He gets to that chapter 3 and realizes that there's a time for everything. He looks at just the way that some people can try to live upright lives and do the right things, but they'll have difficulty, while sometimes the wicked seem to do very well. And he just looks at all these hard to understand things about life. And then he gets to this chapter 9 and realizes that in chapter 2 or verse 2, it is the same for all. There's one fate for the righteous and for the wicked, for the good, for the clean, and for the unclean, for the man who offers a sacrifice and for the one who does not sacrifice. As the good man is, so is the sinner. As the swearer is, so is the one who is afraid to swear. There may be difficulty in everybody's lives, and we won't all understand that. And he talks about making sure that whatever you do, that you work heartily at it. And then we get to several in chapter 10 and also in chapter 11. It's almost like a set of proverbs. He's not so much talking about how he searched things out and what he decided. He's just doing a statement after statement after statement. So I want to pick up in chapter 11 in verse 1 and just read forward to our verse for the day. He says, "Cast your bread on the surface of the waters, for you will find it after many days. Divide your portion to 7 or even to 8, for you do not know what calamity may occur on the earth. If the clouds are full, they empty the rain upon the earth, and whether a tree falls toward the south or toward the north, wherever the tree falls, there it lies. He who watches the wind will not sow, and he who looks at the clouds will not reap." And then here is our verse for the day. "Just as you do not know the path of the wind, and how bones are formed in the womb of the pregnant woman, so you do not know the work of God, who works all things." Oh, friends, this statement of there are things we can look at, we can try to figure out maybe the order that they happen, and like when I think about in the medical world, how we know the stages and when these happen, and we can try to figure out some of it, but the bottom line is we don't know all the details. We are not in that same way going to know all of the details of how God works things. We cannot fully grasp his workings. Who can understand the mind of God? We cannot fully understand it. We can get little glimpses, those that he allows us to get, and we only get those because he allows it. It's not from our own wisdom or our own ability to understand. We have to realize that he is so much far and away higher than we are. His thoughts are higher, his ways are higher, but we must trust that they are perfect. And when we get over ourselves, so to speak, and realize that we have to walk by faith and not by sight, not by our own human reason, when we let go of that, then we can fully trust him all the more. That is one of the big deals, letting go of that, being able to figure out every detail. Even in those of us who God has given a somewhat analytical mind where we like to see how things all fit together. We could get parts of it, but we are never fully going to understand every piece of the puzzle, every why that God does things, other than to know this overriding thing that he is going to do what's best, that he is sovereign. In other words, he reigns over all. We are not going to understand why certain things happen to certain people and they act one way, and certain things happen to another group of people and they act a different way. And we are not fully going to understand that, but we can always trust our God. We can always trust that he keeps his promises, that he does truly love us, that he is love, and that he is going to always, without fail, every single time, do the right thing and the best thing. And if we feel that we're hurt in that, or that it doesn't seem fair, that we are not seeing the whole picture from his standpoint. I think about the example, and this was in a poem that my grandmother had, and when I've looked it up, it says that the author is unknown, but it's called The Weaver, and the gist of it is that it's like we are looking up at a tapestry, but we're looking at the bottom, and we see, if you look at something that's been sewn and you turn it and you look on the wrong side of it, you're not looking from the top down, but you're looking from the bottom up, you'll see the strings and the knots and all the things, and you can't see the picture. But when you look at it from God's side, you see the beautiful woven masterpiece. And I don't do this often, but it's been quoted several times by several Christians, and it just gives such a wonderful picture of what happens. It says, "My life is but a weaving between my Lord and me. I cannot choose the colors. He worketh steadily. Oft-times he weaveth sorrow, and I in foolish pride forget he sees the upper, and I the underside. Shall God unfold the canvas and explain the reason why, nor till the loom is silent and the shuttle cease to fly?" Spouts makes me want to cry. "The dark threads are as needed in the weaver's skillful hand as the threads of gold and silver on the pattern he has planned. He knows, he loves, he cares, nothing the truth can dim. He gives the very best to those who leave the choice with him." Oh, I love that. And so that is the case, friends. We don't see the whole story. We do not know the work of God who works all things, but may we trust him completely. We will find joy. We will find peace. We will find rest in that if we trust him completely. And I encourage you to do that today. Blessings to you, friends. Until next time.